You woke up today thinking it would just be another ordinary day. Another morning staring at the ceiling, feeling that inexplicable weight in your chest. Once again asking yourself why, even though you have everything that should make you happy, there's this constant feeling that something is deeply wrong. As if you were living someone else's life. Maybe you ended up at this video because you're searching for answers. Or maybe it was the algorithm that brought you here. But I need to tell you something that will completely change the way you see what's happening to you. There is no coincidence. You're here because your mind, your unconscious, is screaming for a transformation that you still can't fully understand. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover why you feel like you're living on autopilot, why all your achievements seem empty, and most importantly, why this desperate feeling is not a problem, but actually the first sign that something extraordinary is about to happen in your life. But before I reveal what's really behind this feeling of emptiness, I need to ask you a question. Have you ever stopped to think about why some people manage to find purpose and genuine happiness, while others, even having everything, feel lost? The answer is going to surprise you. There is a psychological phenomenon studied for over a century that explains exactly what you're going through. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, discovered that there is a specific moment in every person's life when they reach a breaking point. A moment when everything you've built, all the masks you've learned to wear, all the expectations you've tried to meet, simply stop working. Jung called this the individuation crisis. But what does that mean for you, right now, in this moment of your life? It means you've reached a point where your unconscious is rejecting the version of yourself you built to please the world. Your psyche is saying, enough. I won't keep pretending everything is fine. I won't accept this life that isn't truly ours anymore. And that hurts. It hurts because you feel like you're failing, like you are the problem. You look around and it seems like everyone else has their life figured out, while you feel completely lost. But here's the truth nobody tells you. This feeling is not a sign of weakness or failure. It's the opposite. When you feel like your life is falling apart, when nothing makes sense anymore, when the things that once motivated you don't work anymore, that's not the end. It's the beginning. Your unconscious is preparing you for a complete transformation, but first it needs to destroy everything that isn't truly yours. Think of the butterfly. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar isn't just growing or improving. It is literally dissolving, completely disintegrating. Its cells break down so that something entirely new can emerge. If you could see this process from the inside, it would look like the caterpillar is dying. But it isn't. It's being reborn. That's exactly what's happening to you. Your old identity, that person you thought you had to be, is dissolving. And your ego is in panic, desperately trying to hold on to how things used to be. That's why you feel this constant inner struggle, this sense of being stuck between two worlds. Jung discovered that there is a force within us that he called the self, our deepest, most authentic self. And when we reach a certain point in life, the self simply won't accept the lies we tell ourselves anymore. It demands authenticity. It demands truth. And if you resist, if you try to keep pretending everything is fine, the pressure will only grow stronger. You know that feeling of being at the breaking point? That sense that something needs to change, but you don't know what or how. That is the voice of the self screaming for freedom. And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. But here's what impresses me the most. You watching this video is no accident. Right now, millions of people are scrolling through the same feeds, the same algorithms. But you stopped here. You're hearing these words because your psyche is ready for the transformation that's coming. The question now is no longer, why do I feel this way? The question is, are you ready to discover who you really are when all the masks fall? If you're enjoying this reflection and want to dive deeper into this process of transformation, subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will reveal the secrets your unconscious mind already knows, but that your ego still doesn't want to accept. The truth is that your mind already knows exactly what needs to happen. It's been sending signals for months, maybe years. That restlessness you feel on Sunday night thinking about Monday. That sensation of playing a role that isn't yours. That small voice whispering, "This isn't what I want," when you're doing exactly what should make you happy. These are not symptoms of depression or anxiety, as many believe. They are symptoms of alignment. Your psyche is trying to align you with who you really are, destroying who you believe you should be. Jung discovered something fascinating while studying his own patients. There is a universal pattern. First, the person builds a persona, a social mask that works perfectly to navigate the world. You learn to be the obedient child, the dedicated employee, the understanding partner. And it works. For a while. But then something happens that Jung called the encounter with the shadow. Suddenly, you begin to notice parts of yourself you always denied. Maybe you discover that you have desires you never admitted. That you feel anger toward people you always respected. That you want things your persona would never allow. That scares you, doesn't it? Because you've always defined yourself as a good person. And good people don't feel certain things, don't want certain things, don't do certain things. So you try to repress these impulses, these discoveries about yourself. You try to go back to who you've always been. But here's the problem. Once you see, you can't pretend you didn't see. Once your shadow is revealed, it doesn't go back into hiding. And the more you try to suppress it, the more power it gains over you. Have you noticed how some of your most intense reactions happen when someone does something you would never do? That disproportionate anger you feel when you see someone being selfish, or lazy, or dishonest. Jung would explain this very simply. You're seeing your own shadow reflected in the other. It's not that you are a bad person. It's that you are a complete person. And complete people have light and shadow, virtues and flaws, noble impulses and primitive impulses. The problem arises when we try to be only the light, completely denying our darkness. When that happens, your psyche enters into civil war. On one side, the ego trying to maintain the perfect persona it built. On the other, the self demanding total integration, complete authenticity. And you're stuck in the middle of this battle, feeling like you're being torn apart. That's why you can have everything in life, the relationship, the career, the recognition, and still feel a deep emptiness. Because none of it was built by your authentic self. It was built by your persona. And the persona, no matter how successful, is always a partial lie. But there's something even deeper happening. Jung discovered that, as we approach midlife, our psyche goes through a complete revolution. The values that guided the first half of our life, success, approval, security, begin to lose meaning. And entirely new values emerge, authenticity, purpose, transcendence. This doesn't happen smoothly. It's an internal earthquake. Your priorities change overnight. Things you chased for decades suddenly seem insignificant. And things you never considered important become urgent. You may wake up one day and realize you no longer want to impress anyone. You no longer want to compete. You no longer want to pretend everything is fine when it isn't. And this terrifies the people around you, because they are still operating under the old value system. Your friends may say you're going through a crisis. Your family may suggest therapy. Your partner may not understand why you've changed so much. But the truth is that you haven't changed. You are finally becoming who you always were, beneath all those layers of expectations. And here comes the most painful part of the process, existential loneliness. When you start living authentically, you inevitably distance yourself from people who only related to your persona. Relationships that seemed solid begin to crack. Environments that once felt comfortable become suffocating. You may feel like you're losing everything. And in a way you are. You're losing a version of yourself that was never really you. You're losing relationships built on well-intentioned lies. You're losing a life that worked, but wasn't yours. Jung called this the dark night of the soul. It's the moment when you're in the middle of transformation. You are no longer who you were, but you have not yet become who you are destined to be. It's like being suspended in the air, with no floor and no ceiling. At this moment, you have two choices. You can go back, try to return to the old version of yourself, pretend this discovery never happened. Many people make this choice. They return to the persona, accept a life that isn't theirs, and spend the rest of their existence with the feeling that they missed something important. Or you can move forward, even without knowing where you're going. Even feeling afraid. Even losing people and things you thought were essential. Because you've discovered something that changes everything, the difference between existing and living. The difference between existing and living is brutal. Existing is doing what's expected of you, following the script that others wrote, keeping appearances running. Living is making choices that may make no sense to anyone except you. It's accepting that your authenticity will bother people who preferred your previous version. And right now, you are facing what Jung called the great decision. It's not a choice you make once, and that's it. It's a choice you'll have to make every day, sometimes every hour. The choice to be who you truly are, even when it means disappointing expectations. But before you make this decision, I need to tell you about something that will completely change your perspective on what's happening. Do you know why certain people seem to have a natural ease in finding their purpose, while others struggle their entire lives without ever reaching it? The answer has nothing to do with luck or talent. It has to do with psychological timing. There are specific moments in life when our psyche is open to deep transformation. And you right now are in one of those moments. It's no coincidence that you are questioning everything. It's no coincidence that nothing makes sense anymore. Your unconscious mind has opened a window of opportunity that may never repeat. Jung observed that these windows usually open after great losses, crises, or moments of transition. Maybe you've lost someone important. Maybe you've gone through a breakup. Or maybe you've simply reached an age where you can no longer pretend you have infinite time. What matters is that this window is open now. And if you don't pass through it, if you choose to return to the known and familiar, it may close for years, perhaps forever. You could spend the rest of your life asking yourself, what if I had had the courage? But here's what impresses me most about Jung's work. He discovered that the universe conspires in favor of our individuation. When you finally decide to be authentic, when you stop resisting transformation, things begin to align in an almost magical way. The right people appear in your life. Opportunities emerge out of nowhere. Meaningful coincidences happen with a frequency that defies logic. Jung called this synchronicity, the principle that connects seemingly unrelated events through meaning, not cause and effect. Have you experienced this? Moments when you made a courageous decision and suddenly the universe seemed to respond positively? As if all forces were working to support your choice? This is not wishful thinking or magical thinking. It is a documented phenomenon that occurs when we stop fighting against our essential nature and begin to flow with it. When you are aligned with your true self, you enter into synchrony with something much greater than yourself. But, and here comes the hardest part, first you need to go through what Jung called the second half of life. It has nothing to do with chronological age. It has to do with a fundamental shift in values and priorities. In the first half of life, you build yourself. You develop skills, establish relationships, achieve positions, accumulate experiences. It's an outward movement, an expansion into the material world. In the second half of life, you discover yourself. You question everything you've built, integrate your contradictions, find deep meaning. It's an inward movement, an expansion into the psychological and spiritual world. The transition between these two phases is always turbulent. It's like changing the engine of a car while it's moving. For a moment, neither the old nor the new works completely. You are lost between two worlds. And it's exactly at this moment that most people panic. They interpret the confusion as failure, the uncertainty as weakness. They try to return to the certainties of the first half of life, even when those certainties no longer make sense. But you need to understand, this confusion is not a system bug. It's a feature. The confusion is necessary because you are literally rewiring your brain, reorganizing your values, redefining your identity. This process cannot be clean and organized. It has to be chaotic. Jung compared this to the alchemical process. Ancient alchemists believed that to transform lead into gold, it was first necessary to completely dissolve the lead. They called this phase nigredo, the blackening, the moment of total decomposition. Only then came albedo, the whitening, the purification. And finally, rubedo, the reddening, the birth of true gold. You are in the nigredo of your life. Everything you thought you knew about yourself is being dissolved. Your old certainties are being questioned. Your relationships are being tested. Your identity is being rebuilt from scratch. This is frightening because you cannot see the gold yet. You can only see the chaos, the dissolution, the uncertainty. But the gold is there, forming in the midst of the confusion. Your most authentic version is emerging from the ashes of your persona. The question is, will you trust the process, even without being able to see the outcome? Will you go through the darkness knowing that on the other side there's a version of you you cannot yet imagine? Because here is the ultimate truth, you don't really have a choice. The process has already begun. The only question is whether you will collaborate with it or fight against it. Whether it will be a conscious and intentional transformation, or an unconscious and traumatic one. Conscious transformation is the difference between being a victim of circumstances or becoming the architect of your own destiny. When you decide to collaborate with the process, when you stop seeing the crisis as punishment and start seeing it as opportunity, everything changes. Literally everything. Jung discovered that there is a specific moment when the internal alchemy reaches its turning point. It's when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" It's a subtle shift in language, but it represents a complete revolution in perspective. At that moment, you stop being a hostage of your circumstances and become a student of them. Every difficulty becomes information. Every loss reveals itself as liberation. Every ending becomes a new beginning. You develop what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to find meaning and direction amid chaos. But I'll tell you something that few psychologists dare to admit: this process is not just psychological. It's spiritual. Not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the sense of discovering that there is something much greater operating in your life. Something Jung called the archetypal self, an organizing intelligence constantly trying to guide you toward your fullest realization. This intelligence manifests through dreams that show you paths your conscious mind would not consider. Through sudden intuitions that arrive when you stop forcing solutions. Through coincidental encounters with people who carry exactly the message you need to hear. When you learn to pay attention to these signs, when you develop trust in this greater intelligence, you discover something extraordinary: you were never really lost. You were just learning to listen to a different language, the language of the unconscious. And here's where the magic really happens. When you stop trying to control every aspect of your life and start dancing with the forces trying to guide you, you enter a state of flow. Not just psychological flow, but existential flow. You become like a river that has found its natural bed. The right decisions begin to become obvious. Toxic relationships naturally dissolve. Opportunities aligned with your purpose appear without you needing to force them. You develop unshakable trust, not in yourself as ego, but in yourself as an expression of something universal. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who others want you to be or who you think you should be. And when this happens, you realize something amazing: your uniqueness does not separate you from others. It connects you with them in a much deeper way. Because when you are genuinely yourself, you give others permission to be genuinely themselves. Your authenticity becomes an invitation for others' authenticity. You stop attracting people based on your persona and start attracting people based on your essence. The relationships that emerge in this phase of life are different. They are based on mutual recognition, not mutual need. You no longer need anyone to complete or validate you. You relate from abundance, not scarcity. And this reflects in every area of life. At work, you stop chasing approval and start chasing purpose. In finances, you stop accumulating out of insecurity and start creating for expression. In health, you stop neglecting your body and start honoring it as the temple of your consciousness. But perhaps the deepest change is in your relationship with time. When you live aligned with your true self, you stop feeling like you're wasting time or that time is passing too quickly. You enter synchrony with the natural rhythm of life. You learn that there are moments for action and moments for contemplation. Moments to build and moments to destroy. Moments to connect and moments to retreat. You develop what the ancients called wisdom, the ability to do the right thing at the right time. And here's the most beautiful part: when you complete your individuation, when you become genuinely yourself, you realize that your personal journey was, in fact, a universal journey. The pains you thought were only yours are the pains of all humanity. The discoveries you made about yourself are discoveries about human nature. You become, in Jung's words, a wounded healer. Someone who has gone through the journey of transformation and can now guide others through it. Not as a guru or expert, but as a fellow traveler who has already passed certain passages. This does not mean your life becomes perfect or that you no longer face challenges. It means you develop a completely different relationship with challenges. You see them as opportunities for growth, not as evidence that something is wrong. You understand that life is not about avoiding difficulties. It's about developing the capacity to dance with them, to find grace in the struggle, to discover meaning in suffering. You become literally unbreakable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because you've learned to extract wisdom from any experience. And when you reach this point, when your individuation is relatively complete, something magical happens. You realize that the video that brought you here, this journey of discovery that began with a feeling of emptiness and confusion, was no accident. It was pure synchronicity. Your soul knew it was ready for transformation and conspired to place you exactly where you needed to be to receive exactly the information you needed at the right moment. Because here is the ultimate truth, the most important lesson Jung left us. nothing in life is truly accidental. Everything is an invitation. An invitation to awaken, to grow, to become who you were born to be. The video that marked the beginning of your change was only the beginning. The true journey is just starting. And if you've made it this far, if these words resonate with you, then you have already made the most important decision of your life, the decision to live consciously. Subscribe to the channel because this is only the first layer of a transformation that will change not only your life, but your understanding of what it means to be human in this extraordinary universe.